Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest in our Analytica influencer interview series. Today I am very pleased to have Tamara McCleary. You may have seen her from some of our kind of influencer chats in the past, lending her unique brand of wisdom to those. But today we wanted to talk to Tamara directly. So welcome, thank you very much for joining. And I wanted to kick off, for those who don't know, by maybe giving us a quick summary of who you are, what you do, and how you got into the influencer space.
Well, thanks, Jack, and hello, everyone. I never, ever dreamed or thought or desired to be in the influencer space, and my path is a very, very twisted trajectory. Starting off as a registered nurse, in '87. When I was 2, right? And then going back to school for a graduate degree in molecular physiology, and then trying to fund my penchant for paying for advanced education. I took jobs taking new technologies to market in Silicon Valley, which is where I was. And it was through, taking new tech to market and really learning how to, it's really, marketing is about communication, and it's about communicating in such a way as you are highlighting the product or service to deliver on the pain points of the target market, essentially. And this is what bringing new technology to market was like. And after a giant flop of this stellar watch-worn technology back in '93, yes, it wasn't an iWatch, but it definitely did what the iWatch does. This was back in '93. And it wasn't with Apple, it was with a new startup tech company. And it, literally would record your cardiac rhythm, like we can do now. But there was nothing like that in '93. And it far surpassed anything in health tech that we had at the time. But the reason it flopped wasn't because it wasn't great technology, because it was. It flopped because the market wasn't ready. People weren't ready. The managed care providers, the hospital systems, healthcare wasn't ready to disrupt the current gold standard at that time, which was the Holter monitor. So learning about people and why we make buying decisions became really fascinating to me. And that's what really marketing is. A good marketer has a great pulse on the target market and what it is that really communicates to that target to so inspire them to want to take an action. And that action is to, buy that product or service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think it's interesting that you kind of got your start in healthcare, because I guess nowadays that's thought of as a market that's very difficult to operate in terms of marketing and things. Do you think there's any ways that's kind of shaped your outlook on marketing, sort of coming from an industry where, I mean, it's obviously incredibly high stakes, it's people's health, it's it's the most important thing, but also one that maybe there's probably less room for maneuver than in some other industries. Do you think that's kind of shaped the way you think about that communication?
It's interesting you picked up on that, Jack. You're clever, because I think that's exactly why I am attracted to the B2B marketing space, because it is exquisitely challenging in the fact that you're dealing with a lot of these industries that are heavily regulated. And if you look at healthcare, I mean, there are all kinds of regulations. There's privacy issues. There's security. There's also, think of medical malpractice, right? So you don't just show up on scene with some new product or service. It's really, really difficult. And talk about legacy systems. Healthcare is legacy, and so getting adoption and mindset shifts. It's hard to say mindset shifts. Say it 3 times, but getting that to happen is, to me, that's the big challenge. And this is what we see in B2B space, whether it's utilities, it's manufacturing, or, it could be mining, it could be textiles, it could be any industry what you see is that, financial services is another one that I do a lot in, and it's heavily regulated. But to me, isn't that the juicy aspect, Jack? I mean, it's because it's difficult, it's challenging, and you're taking these legacy pieces and mindsets, and you're also talking about what is a good investment long term, because technology is evolving so quickly that I think this is why I started, and I forgot to tell you what I do today. And that is, I just happen to be, so I have I'm the CEO of a company called Thulium. And it was probably about 2006. And I was, really on that bandwagon for social media. Were you on social media in 2006, Jack? I'm afraid to ask you that question. Okay, yeah, no, so he was
2006. 2006 would be the year that I, under the terms of most, under the terms of use of most social networks, I first was allowed. I was actually a late adopter as a kid. I was quite stubborn. So it was actually the thing that persuaded me. Don't know why I'm choosing now to share this, but the thing that persuaded me to adopt social media was actually, there was a girl I liked and she didn't go to my school, so I came on to
it was love that brought you to social media.
And I mean, I have no idea what she's doing now, but I'm still there, so clearly.
Can you say her name?
Her name was Sophie.
At least you remembered. Sophie, she remembered you.
Yeah, I'm sure my current partner won't mind me mentioning this.
Well, it was 2006, so we'll call it the past. But
it was a long time ago, yeah.
It was funny that you said you were allowed, and that was my big indicator. I actually shouldn't have been allowed, but I jumped on in 2006, and it didn't take me long to see how powerful social media was going to become, because it's it democratized across the entire population the ability to have a voice. And if you had an internet connection, you could have a voice. And what is marketing? It's communication. So I saw back in 2006 that this was going to be a huge vehicle, very powerful for marketing. And so I started my agency, Thulium, which we focus on social media marketing. And what I thought was funny is that all of my colleagues from the past were like, social media? Like, why on earth would you waste your time on social media? But nobody's laughing now, are they?
Yeah, love it or hate it. I don't think anyone would deny the influence.
No, and especially now that we've been working from home and sheltering in place, what did we have to communicate? We were using social media. So, I think it's a really powerful tool, and no better tool is there, I think, to be able to do B2B marketing than social media.
Yeah, I think particularly, with those long buying cycles, and we're seeing, I mean, it's interesting, we're seeing some of those obviously accelerating right now because people are having to sort of make quite fast decisions. On projects that they probably would have, digital transformation type projects that probably would have taken a year. But I mean, do you think there's anyone like that you can think of who's doing a good job right now at sort of helping compile that information quickly? Because I think that's an interesting, particularly those kind of industries where there's a legacy of maybe using older technology, like the government's another one, actually. There's lots of systems still running on Fortran, which is ancient. A lot of the Fortran engineers are going to retire soon, and they're going to have a real problem. So that's kind of like a long-winded way of saying, do you think there's anyone doing a really good job of using social right now, or to kind of cut through and explain that? Like, is there anyone you can think of, or what do you think are the skills that people really need to communicate effectively through social, to explain those like complicated programs, like a big long issue like digital transformation in financial services or healthcare?
Right. And just because, obviously we are an organization that works with B2B companies, I won't name any brand names. I won't commit that faux pas. But to your point about individuals, I think there's a lot of individuals out there that are doing a really good job being quite influential because of the kind of information that they're disseminating, because of their engagement. And these individuals are people that other people know, like, and trust. And isn't that how sales gets done? And they have, they are giving good content away. They are helpful. They are great people. And, a really good example of someone that I think is doing a powerhouse job of engagement in the employee experience and employee engagement space is Danielle Guzman at Mercer. She's amazing. I have a great deal of respect for her. I joke with her and say she must be a cyborg because her level of engagement is out of the roof. And anyone that's connected with her will tell you the same thing. She is a connector, but she communicates such great information and shares great information. In the cloud space, there's no one I trust more as far as great content and engagement than Joe Peterson. And she's amazing. Let me think. In the security space, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Tina Grable and also Tyler Cohen-Wood. These are big powerhouses in the cybersecurity space that are always putting out great information. In fact, Tyler Cohen-Wood just put out a book, and it's really interesting, and it's about really, cyber protection for all of us that are basically living our lives out there in the cyber world. And she's former DOD. So she's definitely someone with an incredible bounty of experience. I think of who else, Mark Babbitt, Chris Edmonds. There's so many great people out there. What's bad about naming people is that probably I'll hang up with you and there'll be all these really awesome people that I know really well and be like, Tamara, why didn't you mention me?
It's always who do you forget, which is why it's a cruel question.
Sorry, you guys, he put me on the spot. But yeah, there's just so many really great people. But here's the quality that they all share. Each in their own specific specialty and industry. The qualities that a great influencer shares is that they're putting out really good content, and it's not about them. It's not, hey, look at me, da, 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 da. It's not the celebrity influencer. And I think B2B companies that are migrating towards using celebrity influencers are missing the mark. Because in the end, what's the point of influence? It's about helping to really sell your product or service. And although people like celebrities have a lot of popularity, you might really think someone's a great actor, but doesn't mean that you're going to buy a back-end enterprise solution because an actor was talking about the solution. I think it's about that know, like, and trust. You don't really know celebrities. You might like them, but you don't really trust them. You're not trusting them with your spend that you're responsible for at an organization. So I think this know, like, and trust, this moving the needle on the business bottom line happens through influencers who have a body of work, who are in the trenches, they know what they're talking about, and it creates that level of trust, and they're engaging. So that means that, they're commenting, they're posting, and they're not just spamming LinkedIn and Twitter with a bunch of information. They're actually putting out things that they think would be beneficial to you, and they're also having a conversation with you. And I think really that's key to what an influencer is.
Yeah, no, agreed. I think that ability to bring the use case for something to life is, I think that's often what brand comms can sort of miss, because I've done it myself when I'm, sometimes when I'm talking about something I spend a lot of time thinking about and working on, all I can talk about is all the detail and all, like, it does this and it does this. And I probably get like that sometimes when I'm, trying to just explain a product myself to a friend. And I think brands are sometimes kind of fall into that trap, don't they, of kind of, here's all the things it does. And you need someone to kind of take a step back, look at it and go, oh, so could it do, could I do this? If I was in this situation, would it work? And kind of just bring out that, that story behind it about why it's what are all the situations this service would be useful in, like if I'm having this challenge and that kind of thing. And I think sometimes it just takes a third party, doesn't it? And someone with that depth of experience, as you say.
And troubleshooting, right? So, if we're going to oh, you know who I forgot? I knew I was going to pop, name's going to pop into in the space of influencer marketing. I think that I forgot to mention 3 really great people, and that's Rachel Miller. She rocks in the influencer marketing space. Ursula Ringham is just wow. Incredible, lots of experience with influencer marketing. And then both Rachel and Ursula are at SAP. And then Amisha Gandhi is on the Ariba side of SAP, and she's on the influencer marketing pieces. I forgot these phenomenal women. And I really make it a point to try to pull out incredible women, because there are a lot of great male influencers out there. I love men. I married one. I birthed one. So I have nothing against men. But there are a lot of really...
There's a lot of us in the public eye, to be honest, probably too many.
But, that was my TMI share. But no, I really think that it's important for, us to talk about women in the influencer space, because there's so many great ones out there. And especially us women out there, we should be talking about women too, because honestly, I think women are harder on women than men are. And I don't know what that is, but I really want to make a point of trying to always think of all the women that I know in the space that are powerhouses. And there are a lot of them. And I know I'm forgetting a bunch of them.
I mean, I always think one of the real benefits and advantages that social media has over kind of some of the more traditional gate-kept methods of forms of media is that it is more democratic, and it's easier to represent the world as it is, which is with the example of women as an underrepresented group, half the people are women. We can have half the people participating be women far more easily than with kind of where you've got to go through a bunch of other groups. So I've always thought that's a way, particularly with brands who you see them kind of roll out the senior leadership maybe, and it kind of looks a particular way. It's not necessarily fully representative. I think it's a good way of, at least you can go, look, here's our strategy in 20 years to equalize the board. Right now, though, we can actually, we can put our money where our mouth is almost by choosing to give a platform to people who represent the world as it is. And that's a kind of, I always think that's a really good step any brand can take. Like, you can do that tomorrow. You can decide who you put on a stage and who you make an effort to platform. And like you said, it's not like there's a lack of people out there. There's loads of
there are loads. For
people.
Channel marketing, Janet Shines is amazing. She's like always the channel partner of the year. She's an awesome woman. Sandy Carter at Amazon, at AWS. Sandy Carter is amazing. And some of these women, their knowledge of technology in their actual body of work and their positions has been just something that I think is what is influential, right? It's not just putting up shares and talking to people. It's, what are you doing? How are you in the trenches? What problems have you solved for some of your customers? And to me, this is what the juice of it is, right? It's show me, don't tell me.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. I think there's something I kind of want to touch on, because obviously you're a little bit of you're kind of a double threat, really, because you know about this in that you practice it, and then you obviously wield influence on a lot of these topics yourself. And I think, so obviously we can talk about, if brands are interested in working with you, the sort of, content they can work on. But the thing I really am interested in is, do you think we're going to see more brands approaching people like you actually for that insight and that advice? Because anyone listening to this conversation can tell that you know heaps about social, heaps about the spaces where you're influential. Do you think we're going to see a shift where, rather than only asking for kind of partnering on content, do you think we're going to see more brands starting to ask, actually, we'd love to partner with you on content, and what do you think about this campaign? Like, what are you What are your goals in this space, and what are you interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important for influencers to do that for the brand if they're not asking. Because, if we're waiting for the brand to tell us what to do, that's not influential. I think that most of the conversations that I've had with brands is as a strategist, with, asking them, have you thought of this? Have you looked at that? Who's your target? What are you hoping? What action, right? What's the CTA? And so as an influencer, I really believe it's our job to shepherd the brand and to help them so that they have the most successful campaign possible, versus I would never want to be in a position where I want the brand to tell me what to do. But then again, this is why I have my own company. I don't like being told what to do. But to me, it's if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So the things that I'm going to suggest to a brand to consider is to really take advantage of their spend, making sure that every dollar of their marketing spend is working for them, that we can measure the efficacy. Because honestly, if we can't measure it and I can't show the success, then why would the relationship continue? You have to prove worth. And as a CEO of a company, I tell you that I'm numbers oriented, and I need to be numbers oriented, or we wouldn't have an organization. So we operate globally. So I think it's really important that we take a look at how can we use every dollar that a brand is putting towards a campaign. How can we make sure that it's as successful as possible? And in making our customers successful, that's how you get, repeat work. And so I would hope that no one would do what the brand says, because honestly, if they're coming to you, maybe they need to know what it is that you think. That's why you're an influencer. So I think that, when brands are approaching me, they're really, I'm asking them, what's their end goal? At the end of this campaign, what would you consider success? And then we're reverse engineering from there. And we're taking a look at the various things that we can do. And you guys are pros at Analytica. You know that, a one-off, when a brand just approaches an influencer for one thing, that's not successful. It needs to be an ongoing relationship and plan, so that there's a multi-pronged approach with the campaign. And, I think nowadays, if you're in the B2B space, it's about thought leadership. It's about delivering great content. It's about being helpful, being of service. And so that is really critical to be able to understand what kind of content is going to be really helpful. What are the pain points of the target market, and what channels are they on? For me, in this, in the industry space, it's LinkedIn and Twitter. So, where's your buyer? Your buyer isn't hanging out on Facebook. Your buyer isn't on Instagram. Your buyer isn't on TikTok. Although our kids are, the buyer for an enterprise solution isn't on TikTok. So I think it's really important to also focus on the platform, to know which platform your target audience is on, and make sure that you're not watering down your messages by trying to be everywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's easy to sort of want a presence across every platform. I think only the really biggest brands really need to be worrying about that, and even then, in some cases, it's go where the people are. I mean, I'm
just laughing thinking about. Have you seen those cartoons where you're around the board table and they're like, do something funny, or let's get on TikTok, and they're like, why? What is your purpose? I don't think brands just want to be popular. I think brands want to be successful and they want to make money.
I guess the interesting question is going to be in 15 years, people, actual social natives are maybe going to be at those higher levels, and I'm quite curious to see what impact that has. People who are making big decisions are going to have grown up on social networks. And I do wonder if that's going to change it. Do you think that's going to, or do you think people will always sort of mature into the sort of LinkedIn and Twitter for business and separate it out? Or do you think maybe we are going to have to start thinking about making TikToks for enterprise software?
I love the question. And the reason I love the question is history repeats itself, right? So if you look at history, look at even the 1960s, all those that were, rallying and, let's be free and let's do all these, let's free up. Didn't they grow up? They did. And then the children of the 70s, the same thing. The children of the 80s, the same thing. So yeah, everybody grows up, everybody matures. Nobody gets to skip a milestone. And we do change and evolve over time, but so will our platforms. There will always be a younger generation. There will always be music that annoys one generation to the next. That is history. We don't get to defy it. Millennials and Gen Zs aren't going to defy normal growth, development, and evolution. And they too will grow up and are growing up. Millennials are having kids. They're already in the grown-up space. In fact, if we're going to talk younger generation, we should focus on Gen Z.
That's
and
really who we mean, yeah. All millennials have a job now.
Come on, I'm Gen X. I'm really kind of miffed that no one ever talks about our generation. But anyway, that's beside the point. But all you Gen Xers out there,
hard done by in the culture wars, I think.
We got ignored. We're the smaller cohort. We're the first cohort where women had a choice of when to, have a baby. We're the cohort that's small because birth control came out. So we're tiny, but yet we're mighty and we're strong. And a lot of Gen Xers are in senior management positions now. But I think, I was at a really cool conference before our lockdown happened in January and February. At Google. So I was at Google in San Francisco for CMO Summit for the CMO Moves with Nadine Deitch. She does CMO Moves. And it was her summit in San Francisco, put on by Adweek. And then there was one in New York at the Google offices, same thing, put on by Adweek. It was Nadine Deitch, CMO Moves. And both summits had a Gen ZEO panel. It's a whole panel of Gen Zs that had started companies and really young. We're talking like, an 18-year-old with a company.
Yeah, the oldest ones of those are going to be 19 or so. Yeah.
And it was so fascinating to listen to them because they were even saying that on some of these platforms, what annoys them and their generation and kind of do the big eye roll was when brands try to jump on what they think are their platforms. So when brands try to be cool on TikTok, when brands try to be cool on Snapchat, it actually is not positively affecting that generation. Just because that generation is hanging out there doesn't mean they want brands to show up. So I think that was a really important point. And obviously at these two summits, it was a lot of B2C brands, a lot of the most popular names you can imagine. And so, they were saying to these brands even, so can you imagine if they're saying that to a popular drink or popular, athletic wear company, can you imagine what they would think to an enterprise company that tries to be cool? So, again, it always comes back to the conversation of being transparent and being real. And people can see through the motives of an organization trying to be hip and cool. It's like a parent trying to be hip and cool to their teenage kid. We're just not. And so don't try to be. Just be you.
It's a category error. It's impossible, and that's nothing against parents. It's just
Hey, it happens. I'm a parent. I get it. I'm totally not cool to my kids, but I'm not trying to be, and I don't need to be. I'm their parent, not their friend. So I think that enterprise needs to go, all right, this is who we are. Let's own it. Let's be that. But we don't have to be on every single platform where the up and coming generation happens to be living.
Yeah. And I think you can still make content that is exciting and fun and differentiates you. But yeah, you need to do it on the appropriate platform for sure.
Exactly.
I'm really conscious of time. This has been really, really interesting. The last question we always ask is if people want to talk or brands are interested in working with you, what would you say is the best way of getting in touch with you?
My very top favorite platform for getting in touch would be LinkedIn. And you really spend probably far too much time on there.
Yeah, same.
But I really love LinkedIn, and I love that platform, and I love the educational nature of it. And so, you know, LinkedIn, reach out to me there. Twitter, I'm on Twitter. And then personally, just because I love photos and pictures and things, I absolutely love Instagram, just because it's, you know, it's your life in photos, but it's not really where you kind of reach out to me for work. But, you know, if you're interested in the same things, then definitely, yeah, find me there. But I don't know if you heard, I'm going back to school. So as of August, yeah, I've been accepted. You know, I'm a school junkie. So I've been accepted to graduate.
The master's degree wasn't enough.
It's never enough. Oh, you should see my book. So I was such a bookworm. But no, I've been accepted to graduate school at Harvard. So I start there in August. So I will be, you know, for me, LinkedIn probably will become even more powerful and strong, because I won't, you know, really have the time to be on all the other platforms and be taking on a lot of research. Again, I think it's important to have your own body of work. And that's really what I want to dive into, is to create a body of work and be really focused there. And thought leadership requires that we're constantly growing. I am a forever student, so learning every day, and going to be hitting the books in August. So yeah, I would look forward to anyone wanting to connect on artificial intelligence, machine learning, the future of work, where we're headed, how it's going to affect policy, shape policy, and how technology is redefining what it means to be human. So connect with me there if those are of interest to you, because that's what I'm wild about.
Oh man, back to school, and you're going to come back even more, even more powerful than before. That sounds really cool. So all that's left for me to say is thanks very much again for joining me. And yeah, like you heard, Tamara's available on all those platforms. Reach out, follow her for great content on all of those topics. Thanks for watching. We will see all of you again soon for another influencer interview, I'm sure. Until then, I'll see you all online.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Analytica. Thanks, everybody.